Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I figured we'll jump right in. So wherever your story begins, take it away.
Okay, you got it. So for me, this is something a lot of people don't know about me because I don't really talk about my social media, but I wasn't even born in America. I was born in Europe. I was born in Transylvania in a very small town. And the reason I bring it up is because when it comes to like my family and stuff, my parents left for America for like over a year and I had to live with my grandparents. So I'm very close. It's a very small family too. I only have one cousin. Like I don't even have second cousins. It's just me, my cousin. I lived with her, my grandparents, and then I'm not even first generation here. So like for me and my story, like making sure that my parents were okay with everything was like really important to me. So that's why I like to bring it up right away. So from there, I lived in Romania for not that long, for like 2.5 years. Then I came to America and I've been in New York and I've lived in New York my whole life pretty much, in Long Island. And I was never ever like feminine in any slightest way or like any way you could possibly think about it. My mom even admits to this day, she just thought I was like a lesbian for like the longest time because I never was like, my best friends growing up were guys. Like I would always go to like recess and play handball with them. I always had like short haircuts. Yeah. And I feel like there's a point of time in your life when you don't even think about gender because no one really puts any gender expectations on you, if that makes sense. So at one point you're just a kid. Like everyone's a kid. You don't really even think about it. Like you're just having fun. And for me, I never even honestly thought about it too much because it was never like those implications of like, well, you're a girl, you got to do that and this and that were put on me. So once that started happening, that's when I was like, oh, wait, I started realizing for the first time, I know it sounds crazy, but I was realizing, wait, people see me as a girl. And that made me extremely uncomfortable because, again, I always hung out with the guys. Yeah. Like they always treated me just like one of them.
So how old were you, would you say, when you had like that realization?
I was 8 years old. I was very, very young. And I realized I didn't understand what was happening. I just knew that the way people saw me made me very uncomfortable. I was like, wait, I felt like it was unnatural for me, like in every way sense of the word. Like, like my mom started trying to like put me in like dresses and stuff. And like, I just would not do it. I'd throw fits. Like for a long time, I wouldn't even take photos. Like for, reference sake, my father's a photographer. So considering there's no photos of me from like 8 to 12 years old, none. Like that says a lot because I was extremely uncomfortable with photos being taken of me because it didn't feel right when people like looked at me at all. And I really couldn't pinpoint for a very long time because I was very young. I just know that I was uncomfortable in my body, period. Okay. I just thought, I was like, okay, maybe I'm insecure, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But then I started watching how other people acted and then treated other people in retro, like as a like kind of response and reactionary like thing. And I started realizing like, wait, and I realized this at a very young age. And I think that kind of made me grow up very fast because I started understanding people's behaviors at a very young age, and just like very small nuances of people. And I was like, okay, so I don't like people seeing me as a girl. And I understood that. And at one point I did. I think around 8 years old is when I realized, okay, there's something wrong. 9 years old is kind of was like, okay, I don't feel like a girl. But I still was never exposed to the word transgender at that point. Right. Again, I come from an immigrant family. Like over there being gay, it's like, holy cow, like, let alone like transgender. So for me, and it was never my parents' fault. And it wasn't, I never put it on them, but how would they know what it is? They never even thought to like sit me down and like talk about it. So it was one of those things I had to just kind of go through the process on my own.
Right. And I think too, like at such a young age, like you said, it's like, I feel like that's not even a thought in people's minds. You know what I mean? It's kind of like you said, you just knew something was, wrong and you didn't feel comfortable, right. But it's like, how do you really put a label on that? You know what I mean? And know what's going on.
Right. And especially because in school, like you don't really learn about it too much. Right. And I think that's another really big misconception is people feel like if you introduce a young individual to these ideas too early, it influences them. But I feel like if I was introduced to that, that would have probably, like I knew before, anyone ever told me about anything. Right. And pretty much the way I started learning about transgender and stuff like that was honestly like YouTube. YouTube was like getting really big, and and another thing about me was when I was much younger, I was very outgoing. Like I was always out, like on my bike, whatever, extremely active, kind of how I am now. But there was a period of time when I didn't even want to go outside. I just played video games. Like I just tried to avoid any social interaction that I could because again, I didn't want people seeing me physically.
Right.
And in that period of time, I was on YouTube a lot and like video games and things of that nature. And I was like, I love video games because I could play these like role playing games and be a guy. And like, I felt really comfortable. And like, I never, again, at that point, I wasn't really thinking about it. But then I was on YouTube one night and I saw a transgender man speaking about his experiences. And it's funny enough because now I coach him. So it's like, cool.
Really?
Yeah, I coach him
Wow.
now. But I remember seeing him talk about his experiences, and he was very new into his like transition too, because this was a while ago.
Yeah.
And I remember, if it didn't feel like I was relating to him, it felt like he was relating to me. It felt like someone was finally speaking my mind and like vocally expressing exactly how I felt. I was like, oh my
Right.
God. And I actually sat on it. It wasn't one of those things for me that I just immediately, I was like, yep, that's it. That's what I am. Again, I had to mature very fast. So I was very, very self-aware. And I was like, okay, let me sit on it and like breathe and think about it. I definitely feel like this is the closest thing to what anyone has experienced that sounds like what I'm going through. So again, that was young. That was like 9, 10. So I still sat on it until I was 11, 12 years old. And then the reason why it became a lot more important for me to like address it right now for me at that age was because that's kind of the age people start dating or like just talking to people.
Yeah.
Like very casually, obviously you're very young.
Right.
But then that's when another question came in. Okay. Because again, first time I'm exposed to the word transgender, it's like I'm barely exposed to the word like gay, bi, whatever. So in my head, I'm like, oh my God, like, am I just into women and I just want to be like more masculine? So there was that inner turmoil in me, like, okay, am I just extremely masculine or like do I genuinely like feel like a man? And I would sit on it, and I ended up like, talking to girls, and then I realized very casually, I was like, no, like I don't want them to see me as a female, period. Like that makes me very uncomfortable. And that's where I drew the line between my sexuality and my gender. I was like, okay, this has nothing to do with who I'm into. This has everything to do with the way I just physically, I guess, portray myself and the way they like see me,
and more
and
like to
acknowledge
like
me.
who you are,
Right,
and who
exactly.
you want it to be. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's exactly who I am, like really inside. Up to that point, before I started transitioning, it always kind of felt like I was just living third party to myself in my life. Like I was just doing things because that's what I was supposed to do, or like that's what a girl would do. Like I remember literally saying to myself in my head, this is what girls do, right? Like it was that kind of inner dialogue going on, which is obviously not normal.
Yeah.
So that's where I think it's very difficult for people to understand. And that's where I understand. Like I never get offended if someone is like, I don't understand, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I don't expect you to, honestly.
Right.
Like I can't even take that personally because I, I'm in a place at this point where I'm like, I can acknowledge the fact that it's very difficult to understand. And it's not even about understanding it. It's just about respecting that that's
Absolutely.
what someone wants to do. You don't need to understand everyone.
Right.
Like everyone goes about life in very different ways. But as long as you're not hurting anyone in the process, it really shouldn't matter. And like, that's kind of like my big thing, that as long as it doesn't hurt you, it doesn't matter.
Absolutely. And I think too, like the more that you're able to, help people understand, the more people will understand it. You know what I mean? And I think too, like it's one of those things that I feel like, you went through your journey, and all of those steps. And that's how you kind of like figured it out within yourself. And I feel like unless other people are doing that as well, it will be hard for them, to really like know the details. But that's why I think it's so important, like even having you come on, because it's like, it educates people. And like you said, I think respect is so key. And that goes for so many things. Like, because there's always things that people don't agree with or don't understand. And it's like, okay, like we can agree to disagree, but like respect me. You know what I mean? And I think that's important.
Yeah. And like that applies to so many things these days, especially these days. Like it's not about like understanding where the person's coming from. It's just about respecting the fact that they have their human autonomy to like do what they want
and what makes you happy too,
right, in the long run. Because if you're not happy, you're eventually going to affect other people in a very negative way. I really do believe that. And then Oh man, I mean, there's so many, like, my life's gone like so many different directions. And then, so yeah, it was around like 11, 12 years old. That's when it really became a lot more urgent. I get the word urgency comes in mind, where I'm like, okay, like I really need to start addressing this, because I was getting to the point where, again, people are getting social, more like relationship, romantic. And I was like, okay. So I finally, like, that's when I came to terms that I was transgender, because I also do think there was a part of me that didn't want to come to terms with it, because, like, and that's another thing people don't understand, like, who in their right mind would just do this for fun? Like, realistically, because like that's a really big change, you know, like physically, mentally, like socially. I don't think anyone would do this wholeheartedly at such, especially at such a young age, and they really don't believe themselves. So the first person I told was actually my mother. I'm very close to her. And I really just sat her down, and I was just like, you know, I was like, well, clearly you've noticed I'm been a little bit different these past couple of years. And she's like, yeah, like, because at this point she's like been trying to get me to go to therapy, like just do a bunch of random stuff. I'm like, listen, so I think I really understand like what I'm going through, and it's gonna be very difficult for you to understand, but I just need you to let me finish like what I need to say. She was like, okay. And I pretty much told her, I'm like, I think I'm transgender. And she kind of just looked at me for a minute, and I'm like, you know, kind of sitting there and like,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
I know, I'm like, it's like, God damn it, that's fine. Sorry to the person who's hurt, but please go.
No, it's okay. I did a Gymshark documentary that literally, if there was a pin drop outside, they're like, I was
pause.
like, yeah. So I get it. But she just kind of sat looking at me with like a blank stare, and I was like, at this point, I'm like really like, oh boy. And she was like, I have no idea what that means, but I love you unconditionally, and we'll figure it out. And I was just like, you know, I was really taken back, because again, like I come from a family that was never exposed to this word. I mean, my grandfather was in the military at 18 as a sergeant, you know, during like with Russia and like communism. Like it's crazy. Like, you know, like growing up in Europe is very different, like historically what happens to you. So I come from a family that's seen stuff, and, you know, they don't even think about that kind of stuff, like this social issues. And for her to just be so open about it and be like, well, I love you regardless, we'll figure it out together. That really, I really genuinely wish other people could experience that, because I'm very aware that it is not common to that level of just okay. Right. You know, and it's sad, because I really needed that in that moment. And if I didn't get that, I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah. And I think too, like if you didn't get that, then it would probably set you like 10 steps back of like, okay, well, where do I go now? And almost like, I don't think people realize that these are your feelings. And like by people not, you know, respecting that, it kind of makes you feel like they're invalidated. Correct. You know what I mean? So yes. It is so important. Did you, when that was her response, did it feel like a weight was lifted off your shoulder in any way?
Yeah, because I also, again, with all this inner, like, just conflict within me, hiding things from my mom, like, really hurt me, because I was so close to her about everything else that, you know, she sacrificed a lot to get us here in the first place. Like, for some background, my mom was a prosecutor for homicide in Europe. Wow. So she had a really big title, and she left that just because, you know, even there, it didn't really matter. Like there was just like a certain level that you would not be able to surpass, like socioeconomically. So she left for America and with my father, and she just sacrificed a lot. So it was very difficult for me to not tell her these things, especially because I'm an only child. And that was a big, like, you know, lift off my shoulders. And then she told my father. My father reacted the same way, which again, I'm just...
That's amazing.
I'm like absolutely like incredible people. Like I love them. Like I have no shame to like always say out loud, like I love them to death. Like I would not be where I am without them. Like absolutely not. And then they told my grandfather first on my mom's side. So, and again, I grew up with my grandparents for almost 2 years of my life, and like when I was very young. And my grandfather, I always tell this story. I always tell this story, but I just think it's so like powerful. And again, grandfather, just really like your typical tough guy, you know, like he was into boxing and stuff, like you name it, it was him. Mm-hmm. And it's like hard for me not to get emotional saying this, but all he had to say was, I always wanted a grandson. That's it. Aww. And like he came again, like from that background. He was actually also an orphan. He had like 8 different siblings, like a couple of them passed away, like just very tough life. So for him to just be like, I always wanted a grandson, it was just like, absolutely, I'm so blessed. And I just always like to make a big point of that, because a lot of people in my position don't get that, like, to ever say that. So.
And like just such open-minded, nice, good people, like you said.
Yes.
And I think too, it's so amazing that there are, and there, you know, as many people as there are that wouldn't react that way, it's so nice, like you said, to hear that there's people that would. And the fact that I feel like that everyone closest to you in your family had that reaction, I feel like for you that was probably like, oh, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, yes, like this is like, now I can, you know, be myself, or at least begin to feel like myself, you know? Because like I said, if that wasn't the reaction, which unfortunately there are people that don't get that reaction, it's like, at that point, it's like they're in it on their own. And then also, not only that, it's like they don't have that support, you know, which I'm sure makes it so difficult too, you know?
Yeah, it was pivotal for me. And I think when it also just gave me a sense of like I had support, and that gave me the confidence to go forward with it in a very specific manner. And you know, so like I remember the first thing I did is I had really long curly brown hair. I just chopped that shit off. Like I was like, chop it off. It's gone. Like I always dressed very masculine. I just had like wore beanies and like band shirts and stuff, but I did have, honestly, the only reason it was so long was because I just didn't fucking take care of it, because I didn't want to. So I just chopped it off. And I remember going to school and people were like, whoa, like, you know, and they kind of just came up to me like, you know, what's going on? And I was like, oh, whatever, you know, just want to cut my hair. So I was very like, I want to say I was smart about going like transitioning in school, because I was very slow about it. And at one point I first started telling my close friends and I actually had one of them be like, I was waiting for you to tell me. I'm like, great. So again, just overall, I'm very lucky that people were so, I mean, they were outliers, but overall very accepting of me. But one thing I did that I think made a world of a difference was I never really made it a big deal. Like if someone was to ask me about it, like they'd be like, oh, like you're trans? I'll be like, yeah. And they'd be like surprised that I'm so like brief and short about it. And then be like, and they would just like, you know, get awkward about it, which I understand. We're in middle school. Like, what do you expect them to, like, how do you expect them to react? And they'd be like, can I ask you questions? I'm like, yeah, of course. Like, I don't care. And I would tell them, like, just I have always been like that. I'd be like, listen, once I like initially came out, I was always an open book. I was like, you can ask me anything, whatever you feel like would help educate you. Like, I'm an open book, and I promise you won't offend me. I guarantee you wouldn't. So that helped other people feel comfortable to mess up, because I don't care if you mess up. You're not messing up. You're trying. I don't see like by accidents, like, because, you know, for some people it took them a little bit to transfer over to saying he, because they can even blame them. They knew me for years as she. It's just almost at that point just repetition and just like muscle memory to call me a she. So I never took any of that personally. I was like, it's okay, don't worry about it. Like I was never like, I never took it personally. And I think that helped the people like really feel comfortable with me, to be like, okay, he's not like gonna, you know, get offended very quickly. That let people ask me questions that help people feel comfortable to be like, hey, so like, how'd you know? And like just kind of pick my brain a little bit. And I think for me, that was really big socially in school to transition, because people knew I didn't care. So if you approach me trying to make me care, I wouldn't. And if you approach me kind of nervously, like not trying to mess up initially, I also wouldn't care. So it was like, I think it's important for trans people to understand that while you also feel the need to want a safe space, you also have to reciprocate that. You have to let people mess up. Like they're not mess up, but like you have to let people slip. As long as they're trying, that's what matters.
Yeah, and respecting you too, right? Like not trying, what you said before, not trying to hurt you or anything like that.
As long as you know the intentions are fair and good. Like I don't, like, you have to keep things realistic. Like they've been calling you she or he for years. Like it's just one of those things that it's going to take time. It would take me time. I know, I'm very honest. Like if someone was transitioning and I knew them for years, just because I'm trans, it doesn't make me any different than anyone else. Like it would take me a second to be like, okay, got it. Like I'd have to make a mental note to change it. And I'm aware of that. So that really helped me socially, I think, in school transitioning. I was the first transgender of my like district completely. So I got the chance to sit down with like the principal and stuff and be like, so what can we do to accommodate you? I'm like, listen, I'm simple. Just like if I can use the nurse's bathroom or something, like whatever, like I don't really care. So in middle school, I used the nurse's bathroom. And then once I got to high school, at that point, everyone knew I didn't even give a shit. So I just went to the men's bathroom.
Yeah.
And overall, again, I'm such an outlier when it comes to that stuff because I had most of my issues were internal. They weren't external. I had a lot of internal things, but that's just kind of the way it is if you're trans, honestly. You're always going to have some internal stuff. But externally, I probably would have been a mess if my external was also way worse.
Yeah.
And I can't even imagine, like, begin to fathom how some people in my position, especially trans women, like, I not to, like, be, you know, trans women, I think, get it even worse because, I mean, think about it socially. It's fine if female wear men's clothing. I mean, like, a lot of girls do that. It's not weird if you go get a shirt from the men's section that's oversized band t-shirt, put down with jeans and some boots. Like, it's normal, okay? So I feel like...
Right, it's like considered a form of style.
Right. So I feel like people are a lot more initially comfortable with seeing a transgender man. It just, like, makes sense in their brain for some reason, rather than it's a lot weirder or less, not weirder, but it's a lot less common to see a man go in the female section and grab a shirt or something. It's like, whoa, okay.
Yeah,
so I feel like
true. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, so when you look at it from a social perspective, I think that's why trans women just have it so much worse because they're putting, and also, you know, why would a man ever want to be a female, especially nowadays? Like, you guys, like, get so much, like, problems and stuff like that. Like, it just, I feel like people, it's more like a power thing. Like, why would a man want to be a female? Like, I feel like very subconsciously, like, why, how do I put it like this? Like, without, I don't know if I'm putting this right. It's a lot easier being a man than a female. So I feel like maybe subconsciously people, it's, like, understandable if a female wants to be a man, but why like, it's harder for people to understand to want to be a woman. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, because it's a lot more difficult to be a female. Like, so I think there's also that comes into play. So, like, I can't even imagine being, like, a trans female, like, color. Like, God bless you. Like, that's probably so difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just in general, too, you know, this world is such an evil, judgmental place. Yeah. And, you know, I think that it's great when you have a really close group, you know, that you trust and that supports you. And then nowadays with social media, it's like that opens a whole nother world of people to, like, judge and just be mean and say horrible things. So, I mean, yeah, especially if you have a presence on that, it's like a whole nother can of worms. Right.
Yeah. And I totally agree. And I think social media is good because it makes it easier to connect with people that you would never be able to connect.
Look at us.
Yes, exactly. Like, in certain situations, it's fantastic because I think the spread of education and knowledge is a lot easier. But I also think that the spread of hate is a lot faster too. Just as fast, if not faster, which is scary. Like, you know, once you have, like, a movement of people thinking a certain way, it seems like everyone just hops on the bandwagon. We're very, you know, tribal like that. I think humans just like to follow the flow. It's a lot more uncomfortable to stand on your own and be like, no, that's not right. So that being said, I didn't get into social media until I was older. So, and just even bodybuilding. So I actually used to be heavily into music. I was on track to go to Berkeley for music. I was in my school's jazz band. I was the drummer. I was involved in a lot of, like, performance-based stuff outside of school. So for a long time, I was never an athlete until bodybuilding. That's the funny part, which actually helps me because I don't have any injuries, like, from any sports like that. But before I was into drum, like, I know the drums, guitar, bass. Like, I was in the school's a cappella.
Do you still play instruments?
So I'm probably a little rusty.
Yeah.
But if I picked it up,
you got it.
I got it. Like, give me, like, 5 minutes in the corner to, like, mess around, and I'll be good. But because I was really into it. I mean, I would do it for hours and hours. Especially drums. Like, that was my thing.
Right.
And I really was on track for that. Like, I was ready to go to college for it. I was, like, getting into bands and stuff. And then I think what happened for me was I don't want to say I was just very skinny. I was barely 100 pounds. Like, you could probably push me over and I would fly. Like, I was so skinny. And it was probably because I would drum all day. I would play music all day. And I would honestly, like, I would not avoid eating. I would just forget at one point because and with food, a lot of trans people have issues with food. Like, just, like, overall, just, like, a food, like, relationship with their food. For me, it was, I don't want to say it was, like, a crazy issue. It was more like I was uneducated, so I would avoid, like, I was like, okay, carbs, like, I think I shouldn't eat that. Let me just have, like, I don't know, like, chicken and veggies. But I would never, like, limit how much I ate. I would just avoid certain things.
And this was still high school, right?
Yes, this is, yeah. So for timeline, yeah, I'm still in high school right now.
Okay.
I was barely in high school, barely in high school.
And I was going to say too, because I'm sure you saw on social media, I'm into the gym also now.
Yeah, yeah.
And, in high school, that was never a thought. Like, I was really skinny too, like eating God knows what, you know what I mean? Not the best things.
Yes.
And like, I think that it's so crazy because now I feel like people that are in high school have completely different access than we once had, because it's like, when I was in high school, I think social media was kind of just starting, and I think it was like Vine and maybe Instagram just began, but like people really weren't talking about fitness like they are now. Now that's like huge on everything. So it's like these young kids, they can start so much earlier and kind of have a better idea of like, oh, like if I'm skinny, I can build muscle and kind of like change my body, which at the same time can create some sort of like issues. Even with myself, I've gone through times where I'm like, even now it's like, 1 week I'm like, okay, I think I want to lose weight. Next week I'm like, I'll bulk this week. It's like, it's difficult.
Yeah.
There's good and bad to everything.
Yes, correct. Yeah. And I agree, because like when I was getting to high school, I remember like if you could even get in the gym there, it was like great. Like you like found like, because it's usually, it would be packed. There'd be like barely anything. But for me, it was just really like I was so skinny. And I was like, well, I can't change certain things about me, but there's some things I can change. So let's do that kind of thing. And I also, so when I was 16, so I started my transition at 12. That's when I cut my hair. That's when I was like starting to wear like male clothes, and I officially, like, I was out like to everyone at 12. I was very young. So let's backtrack because I missed like some pretty important pretty important points here. So when I was 12, I socially started transitioning, but I also started physically transitioning at 12. So I actually never went through female puberty at all. I never even had a menstrual cycle. Like, people think I'm just like being fucking like playing dumb when like girls talk about it. I'm like, I never went through puberty. Wow, I don't know. Because what happened was, so my mom and I, we decided to go to this place in New York City called the Acronym Institute. And pretty much it was just a very sophisticated, all they did was just child cases of certain topics, including transgenders. So we went in, we met with this fantastic woman, her name was Randy, and it was a very long day. Like, they just were drilling me with questions, and like the point of it all was I was comfortable enough to admit, I'm young, let's go get a professional like to like just like talk to me and like see how they feel about it, because maybe there are things that we're missing that maybe that triggered something in me. I was comfortable enough to be like, yeah, mom, like I actually do want to do this. Like, I'm so young. Like, I was scared too. I was so young. Like, I want to make sure like I want to do this. So we went, they did very interesting things. They had me and my mom interact in front of them. Then they took her out. They put my father in. They took me out. They had my parents interact. They just really wanted to see the family dynamic, I think.
Right.
And then they talked a lot to me one-on-one. And by the end, it was like 6 hours long. Like, it was insane what they did with me. And they also used whatever they did with me for like research. So I did like give their I gave my consent. Like, yeah, whatever you guys want to use for research, fine. Because at that point, there wasn't many young people transitioning.
Right.
At 12 years old, like,
and for you at that age to be that open-minded, you know what I mean, and to be okay with like going somewhere for 6 hours and having someone, like really watch different dynamics and talk to you. It's like, that's like you were saying, it's almost like it forced you to mature early, and like that is very obvious. Like, at 12 years old, I feel like a lot of people wouldn't be able to do that. Yeah,
it would be very uncomfortable. And I remember at the end of it, Randy had all of us come in, and she was like, okay, your child is the most classic textbook case of transgender. I was like, great. Perfect. That's what I wanted to hear. I didn't want to hear any ifs, and buts, but I wanted confirmation.
So they were kind of just analyzing everything.
Yeah. And obviously they used certain things for like, again, research. Like, they actually like had me, they put some like things on the side of my head, and they had like visuals flash in front of me, and they were actually like watching my brain signals and like seeing what patterns would show up and stuff. And they actually brought out like so like I don't know, like when you have like your brain, like you can like someone's brain can be scanned like through like their like I don't know. I'm not that educated when it comes to that stuff. I have no idea what I'm talking about. So please take it as a grain of salt to actually what I'm saying. But they put some stuff on my head and they took like photos with that. I don't know. They took some photos with it, and pretty much they showed me a male's brain and a female's brain, and like the parts of my brain that lit up as a reaction to the photos I was being shown were in male pattern. So they were like, this is really big, like that you let us do this, because there really isn't much physical evidence of transgender people, but this, like your brain signals are mimicking a male's, not a female's. That shouldn't be happening. Right. Like that is something that's unexplainable. And I know that, but that's what they showed me. So I was like, okay, great.
But it also, I feel like for you, was that validation of like, okay, well, that's why I've been feeling this way. You know what? It's like that confirmation.
Right. And then it wasn't hormonal. It was my brain. It was literally my brain. And I mean, if you think about it, like when you're in the womb, the first thing to develop is your brain. The last thing is your sex organs. And your sex organs, they really regulate your hormones. Your hormones play such a big role in what you look like. It's not even funny. So when you keep that in consideration, and you also keep in consideration, I'm Eastern European. Chernobyl happened, like nuclear radiation. I don't know. Like there's a lot of like, I talk about it with people a lot. I personally think that it's possible that, and especially because transgender is such a new topic, what if there is a reason it's new? Because we have so many like electromagnetic waves in the air and like our cell phones and stuff like that, cancer, like a lot of genetic mutations going on. Like it's possible. There's intersex. Like how could it not be possible? Yeah. But anyway, so they did that. So after that, I actually went on Lupron. So Lupron is a hormone blocker. So that pretty much stunted my puberty completely. I had no breast growth. I didn't have a period, like nothing. Like,
and this was all at 12, right?
At 12.
Okay.
Yeah. So and the point of that was they didn't want to immediately put me on hormones because honestly, they were just protecting me, which I respected because I really like that. And I think that's another big misconception is I think people assume that when you're young and you just claim you're transgender, boom, testosterone, estrogen, whatever you need, like surgeries right away. No, it is not like that. Like I had to wait till I was 16. I started at 12. That's 4 years. Yeah. They literally made me wait 4 years, but they were like, okay, like you're good. Like you still clearly like you're mentally fine. Like you still want to move forward with it. Now we feel like you're mature enough where you can make that decision.
So in that 4 years, were they kind of like having you come back in to monitor you as well?
Yeah. So they actually made me go to a therapist, like just to like, and they just made me go to a therapist like once a week. And then it turned into every other week. And it was so funny because I'd walk in and she'd be like, still good? I'm like, yeah. Still good. Because she would literally joke with me. She's like, you're like my most mentally stable patient. Right. I don't even know why they have you here. I'm like, well, I understand because I just want to make sure that I'm handling this well. Right. And then that being said, I did that for a couple of years. And then 16 is when I got my top surgery done. Okay. And that's when I started hormones. That's when I started testosterone.
And how was that? Like, what is the process of that surgery?
Oh, man. So I needed to get 2 therapists. Yes, that I'm good to go. Psychologically. And then I needed to get my endocrinologist that was supplying my testosterone to also say yes. So I needed 3 confirmation letters to get this at 16.
Were you like praying that they all were going to be like, yes?
Honestly, I was confident they would because I really wasn't an issue. Like I was very certain of myself at that point. And again, I think my parents and just my overall family being so certain of me also made me very confident in myself in the sense of my actions. Like I was like, okay, this is what I want. I wasn't like questioning myself. I was like, no, this is what I want, period. Like this is who I am.
So their approval from like the doctors and stuff, that was just all psychological approval basically? Like that he's okay. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure my endocrinologist was also just like checking my hemoglobin, like making sure like I'm physically okay for this. And then the top surgery, again, because I never went through puberty, I barely had growth. So they pretty much, and the reason why I don't have scarring is because they barely performed a surgery on me. Wow. All they really did was almost like a hysterectomy when they do on males. So some males have some, not hysterectomy, I'm totally messing that up. But some men, they have natural growth here too. So they literally just remove the glands. Okay. So that's what they did with me. They literally just removed the glands. And this is the more morbid part. And this is just like some minute detail that I know. But so they literally had to remove my nipples completely, and they reattached them more to the side because female nipples are like more here
in the center. Okay.
and then men are here. So like, well, if you want it to look really realistic, we have
Wow.
to like move them. And then I remember when I was leaving the surgeon's office, they're like, don't make any sudden movements or they will fall off. And I'm like, okay.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I'm like,
God, I'd be terrified.
yeah. And I was terrified. I remember I would walk around like this because I didn't
Yeah.
want to touch anything for like a week.
Oh my God.
But I'm lucky that I don't have scars. Like a lot of
Yeah.
trans guys have scars. But again, because I really think everything starts with the family, because that was the pivotal moment where my family was okay with it. Everything else was such a smooth process
Right,
for
it
me.
like fell into line.
It fell into line because I didn't have to go through puberty. I didn't have like top surgery was easy for me because I didn't go through puberty. Going on testosterone, like immediately I pretty much had like a late puberty because at that point I didn't even go through puberty. So I just went through male puberty, but later on.
Got it.
And then so when I got my top surgery done and started testosterone, super small. I was like 100 pounds again, soaking wet. That's when I made the decision. I'm like, okay, well, now I can take my shirt off in public. I don't want to be embarrassed. So like, let's do something about it. And for me, I realized like, because I started going to the gym and I realized very quickly that was a way for me to feel like I had control over things that I didn't have control. I'm like, well, I feel very small, weak, and frail. Like, I want bigger shoulders. Like, I want more of a V taper. I can do that. That's awesome. Let me keep going. And I'm a very like all or nothing kind of personality. So if I get into something, I'm like, no, I'm going to get into it.
Yeah.
If I'm going to like
dedicate.
like I dedicate myself. So I was very quick to learn like as much as I could about bodybuilding when it came to like macros, nutrition, like things of that nature. But when I did that, I also realized it was very difficult to find information for me because I'm trans. Like, where do you even fall? Because like hormonally, you're one thing, physically in certain aspects, you're another thing. So I didn't even know, like, how do I even tackle nutrition? Like, how much should I be eating? Because I don't know. So for like a year or so I'd say 16 to 17, it was more just casual, just going to the gym with my bud. His name is Jared. Shout out Jared. And then, so Jared and I would go to the gym like every single day, which was way too much. And I remember that I knew that like, so I understood the concept that like if you had something while you worked out, it was supposed to help with recovery, but I went about it in such a poor way. Because like now I obviously do like EAs, cluster dextrins, things like that, because it absorbs fast. Back then I would just be sitting there shoving like rice cakes, tuna down my throat, like mid-workout in like the corner of the gym. And everyone's like staring like, what the hell is he doing? What's the fucking ass doing? Because I would literally be sitting in there.
Right.
And like all my like people will literally like reach out and be like, do you remember when you did that? I'm like, yeah, I do, because I really want to put on weight, whatever I could do.
Right.
But then what happened was I started looking into like the competing aspect of bodybuilding, and I didn't even realize it was a thing. Honestly, I was like, oh, I just thought people go to the gym. I didn't realize you can slap on some trunks, go on stage practically naked and pose and do something. So I was like, wait, that would sound cool for me, because that would be like quite a statement for me to get on stage and do that against like cis guys. So I was like, okay, but I didn't even know if I could. Like, I was like, wait, am I even allowed to do that? Like, I didn't really know the regulation of it.
Yeah.
So that was on my mind as a backburner for quite a bit. And then I got my junior license, and I learned about this gym called Bev Francis Powerhouse Gym. It's on Long Island. It's a very hardcore gym. Like, all the competitors go there. Everyone knows each other, like first, last name basis. The owner of the gym, he's the head judge of Mr. Olympia. Like, it's a very hardcore gym. Specifically for bodybuilding, it's very niche. And I was like, wow, that's awesome. Like, I want to drive there. So I up to the point I had my junior license, I would just start driving there as much as I could, because it was in Syosset, which from me was about 45 minutes with traffic, easily an hour.
Yeah.
So I would make that trip all the time. And I remember like everyone was very welcoming, and I was terrified to go at first. I'm like, oh my God, like I'm like a peanut next to these guys. Like, and these guys, like, these are no joke. They're like Mr. Olympia, like level, like they get on stage every year. And I was like, just at that point, I'm like, just fucking do it, just go. And I was like, okay. So I went, and I remember when I first walked in, I was like, oh my God, like it's screaming. Like the first thing you hear is when you walk in is screaming, which like when you first walk into a gym, you're like, okay, but like it's not like one person, it's not like the one oddball out screaming. It's like everyone as a large group of people is screaming. So you're like, okay, that's a lot. Like that's very different from my high school gym. And I just walk in very awkwardly, like do a chest day, and I remember this, his name's Arash Rabar. He's a professional bodybuilder. He came up to me. He's like, "You're new here." I'm like, I literally looked at him. I'm like, "You can tell, right?" I mean, like, look at me. I'm like, "Yes, I'm new here." Yeah. And he was just like, "Listen, man, like, just want to let you know, like, if you plan on coming here, like, we're all very like easygoing. Like, don't be shy to ask us questions." He's like, "I'm not trying to like insult your intelligence or anything, but like, don't be shy. We've been doing this for a while." And like, I really appreciate that. Like, I like people there were so immediately like, "Hey, like, what's up? Like, what's your name?" Like, they like seeing new people there. It's like exciting for them because like if you go there, that means you want to compete, So I was like, okay, great. So I just started like picking their brains, people there. I met Sadiq, Arash, George Peterson, you name it. Like I met all these people. Yeah, George Peterson, he died. That's why I was like, ugh. So I met all these people and it was great. And then I had the like competing on my mind for a bit now. I'm 17 at this point. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to ask the person that would definitely give me the right answer. So I went to Steve and Bev, who own the gym. And again, Steve Weinberger, he's the head judge of Mr. Olympia. And then his wife, she was like the first female to like squat like 400 pounds, like some crazy like cool stuff. But she ran a lot of the NPC shows, which is the amateur league, which is what you have to start out in bodybuilding in. So I pretty much, I know at the time, Bevs was doing like one-on-one coaching days, like training. So I just went up to him like, "Hey, like, can I do like a coaching day with you?" And she's like, "Yeah, absolutely." So we like scheduled one. And I took the opportunity, like made work. I'm like, "Hey, so like I have a question." She's like, "Yeah, what's up?" I'm like, "So I don't know if you knew this, but I am trans. Like I've been here for a bit." She's like, "Yeah, I knew." I'm like, "Okay, I just want to, so you're not like surprised with the question." I'm like, "So I'm trans. I really want to compete, but I also don't want to waste my time because I'm sure it's very difficult to get like looking like that. Can I do it? Like, I don't even know. Can I even compete?" And she was like, "Why would you not be able to compete?" And I was like, I don't know, because of hormones and stuff. She's like, "We don't care. No one gets She was like, "No one gets tested for hormones. Trust me, you're fine." So I was like, "Okay, great. Like, let me do this." But that's when I hit like a big roadblock for me because finding a coach was so difficult.
Right.
And it was one of those things that I didn't even take it personally because I was like, I'm this scrawny kid. I probably put on like 10 pounds in a year because I have a really fast metabolism. I put on like 10 pounds and I'm sitting here saying I want to do classic physique and I'm also transgender, FYI. And I get it. People are probably like scratching their heads like, "Oh boy, like I don't even know how to handle this." Like, and I respect the fact that they turned me down because that was the responsible thing to do. If you don't know how to handle someone and their body, don't do it. Don't do it. And especially I was young. I was 17, So I respected that a lot. And I'm really grateful thinking about that they did that. But I still was at this roadblock that like, is like anyone
finding someone?
Yeah, I was like, is anyone willing to just try it? And I even would I'd preface it with, "Hey, listen, I understand you might not know exactly what we're doing at first. I understand I might be like a guinea pig a little bit."
Right, like trial and error.
Right. But I trust your overall intelligence to at least help me out.
Yeah.
So I finally got in contact with Jason Theobald, and he's my current coach still up to this point. But I remember emailing him, and he has such a funny style of just like his emails. But I sent this very polite, professional, like lengthy email explaining what I wanted to do. And he emails me back. He's like, "Yeah, sure. Just warning you, I have no idea what I'm doing, but we'll figure it out together." I'm like,
"Yeah.
Great."
Awesome. That was somebody.
Yeah. That was it. He was like, "I have no idea. I've never done this before, but I'm going to use my common sense and we'll figure it out." It's like, that's all I needed to hear. And then from that point, I got ready for my first show. So I started getting ready for my first bodybuilding show at late 17, so which is like December. And then I pretty much had my first show at 18. First shows are always just awful.
Yeah.
Like, I'm always so honest when people ask, like, that first bodybuilding you do will be the like hell because your body's not used to it. It has no idea what you're doing. Honestly, the first diet in general is probably been the worst one of your life because again, your body doesn't know there's a McDonald's around every corner. It just knows, hey, you're not eating enough to support your weight. What's going on?
Yeah.
So
how was the preparation for that?
I suffered. I suffered so bad.
How was it with the coach? Like, did he kind of like get it down pretty quickly or?
No, that's the thing. No? That's why I suffered because I realized that's what's going to happen. Because like, I mean, it was such like a shot in the dark, honestly, with me. And what was really interesting that we noticed from my first prep was when I would be in a caloric surplus, my body would really like really react like a male to food
Okay.
and like overall everything. But once I would get much deeper into the diet and like I believe I was 8 weeks out when it started showing up, but my body would start to react like a female, like to the diet.
Yeah.
Like my body couldn't handle the protein anymore. Like I was on high protein, which is more like you like men can handle a little bit more than women typically.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. Like I wasn't using the bathroom. I think I went like 2 weeks not using the bathroom. Not to be TMI, but like it was bad. And he was like, I'm gonna try something.
See, I'm the opposite when I have a lot of I can't stay off the toilet.
Okay. Well, good for you, because I could not use
Yeah.
them. Like I was like really backed up.
Right.
And he was just like, okay, I'm just gonna take a shot in the dark. We're gonna try something. I'm like, okay, whatever. I literally I was like, if you tell me eat dirt, I'll eat dirt. Whatever.
Yeah.
I trust you. And that's really important too. Like you need to trust your coach because you get so lean, like you can't even think straight.
I was going to say, like, can't even function.
Yeah. Like, and that's why people ask me, how can you be a coach and still be coached? I'm like, because you're so depleted and very subjective that you need that very objective person to be like, hey, you're overdoing it. Hey,
Right.
you're not doing enough. Hey, what do you do? Like, just someone to really keep an eye out on you. And so we lowered my protein significantly, and he actually like switched up my macros to.
Jesus, Kitty. Oh my goodness. She came running. Sorry. Keep going.
It's okay. It's okay. Hello.
She's like, who are you?
Hello.
You go say hi. Oh, there she comes.
So what's it called? So he pretty much changed my macros up to mimic a female. And then all of a sudden it was like my body started responding again. And he was like, interesting. And every single time I've ever had to prep, 8 weeks out, I would have to completely switch over.
Wow.
Which is like so interesting. And that's where like it comes down to like the nuances of being trans and like competing as a trans guy, not a cis guy. Cardio, like and this is actually more of a recent thing we realized. Like Stairmaster is great, but my legs get burnt down it super quick. Like I'll lose size super quick on the Stairmaster. So like I have to move over to the incline treadmill. Obviously there's just personal like genetics that come into play as well.
Right,
always. But just certain things like when I'm specifically dieting will mimic like when he coaches a female getting ready for a bodybuilding
that's
show.
so interesting.
It's so weird. It's interesting. And it's just stuff like that. And that's why it's important that I feel the need to talk about it, because if a trans guy's going to go out there and try and do it himself and not get a coach that knows what they're doing, and they're just going to keep adding more cardio and like just overdoing it because their body stops reacting at one point, like, I want to get the information out there that, hey, listen, it might not be that. It might be like something hormonally going on, maybe like their gut or something.
Right. And I'm sure it's a very confusing process too, because like you were saying, it is trial and error. It's like you kind of have to mess around with some things to figure out like, okay, what works and what doesn't.
Right.
Exactly.
And it was 20 weeks, so 5 months. I really hope my math's right. Yeah, 5 months. So 20 weeks, 5 months. And
she wants to be the star of the show.
And I ended up competing. So I just went full throttle. I think I entered. So when you compete in bodybuilding, you like enter into different divisions and then also different classes. So for classic physique, they have novice, which is like first time ever competing. Like they'll literally give you, if you just want to do that because you're scared. You have novice, you have open, juniors, like, and then they have like different classes based off weight and height. But like, just screw it. I'm just gonna enter as many as I can.
Yeah.
I did not do this not to like really go for it. Like that's how I am as usual. So I competed in novice, which is first timers, juniors, and I'm sorry, juniors. It has an age cap. Yeah, I don't even know. Juniors, and then class. I think they put me in class B or something like that. But I won junior and novice, and then I got second in class B, which is like for first show is like really difficult to do.
Yeah.
And for me, that's when I was like, okay, wait, I can do this. Like,
That's awesome.
Thank you. Like that was like when I was like, wait, this is not delusional. I'm like,
Right.
wait, this is something I can do. It's just difficult, but I can do it, and I want to do it. So that was like when my like bodybuilding really kicked off, like when I did my first show and I started competing. I had like people reach out to me. They're like, wow, that's so cool. Like you're a trans guy, you did this. And like when people ask me, they're like, how does it feel to be a trans bodybuilder? I'm like, honestly, like I forget I'm trans like all the time.
Yeah.
My girlfriend forgets every fucking day.
All the time.
But it's just like one of those things that for me, like I don't even associate the two ever.
Right.
It's just like I'm a bodybuilder that happens to be trans. I'm not a trans bodybuilder.
So when you are going to these shows, is that something that you have to tell them, or?
So there's only one really specific point where I really need to tell them. So usually no, but the problem is you need to get spray tanned.
Okay.
So when you go get spray tanned, because you're literally wearing like these tighty whities, like they're like, so it really depends on what you do. So the physique guys, they wear board shorts. Maybe it would have been smarter I did that. Whatever, I want to do classic guys, we wear like these tight boxer briefs, and then the open guys wear on full on thongs.
Okay, got it.
So, but you need to get spray tan. Like we get super, like they put like 6 layers on. It's ridiculous because you get washed out on stage.
Right.
So when you do that, they make you wear this like semi-trans, like you can semi-see through it. So before they even go from like, listen, telling you right now, if you don't want to do it, respect it, but I'm trans. Never had every single girl was like, okay, come here. But like that's like the only time I have to like fully.
Okay. But like it's nothing that you have to say when actually like going in to compete or anything. It's
no, because again, so the NPC/IFBB, they don't test for hormones.
Okay.
Like in general, most people are on hormones that are on stage. So it's one of those things that I wouldn't be an outlier. Like 9 out of 10 of us on stage are taking hormones. I'm actually safer about it. Like, cause I'm actually like through an endocrinologist and stuff. But it's one of those things that that's kind of like, and that's why bodybuilding is like the competitive side of bodybuilding is slightly taboo, because people know people take hormones, but it's just such a difficult sport. Because for example, let's say you have a track athlete, they usually carb up the night before a run. That's what they'll do because they are going to get ready to be in their most optimal performance. Do you want me to stop?
What are you doing? You little jerk? Oh. Thinking, what does she have, a fucking lip gloss? Hold on a second.
Anyways, continue. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh man, where did I even leave off?
Hormones,
yes. So track guy, yes. So like for example, in a different sport, you have a track runner. They usually carb up the night before, so they perform their best. With us in bodybuilding, you literally are expected to perform at your peak eating nothing. Like you are not sufficiently. Like you don't have, like when you're super deep into prep, you're talking 2 hours of cardio. Like I was eating 3 ounces of turkey breast 3 times a day.
Jesus.
And then like the other meals was like a shake. So it was like barely 1,000 calories. And it's not, and see like when that is not healthy. I will say right now, that is not, it is not a healthy sport. Like honestly, once you get to like the deeper prep, the grueling part, it becomes unhealthy. That's why I don't think it's realistic to tell people, yeah, you can look like that year round. You can look shredded at 5% body fat. Absolutely not. I was not functional. I literally could barely drive. I was lucky that I actually ended up living close to Bev's for a bit, because otherwise I would have gotten in a car accident for sure. So like I get so annoyed when people are like, oh, like I look 5% body fat year round. No, you don't.
Or even on social media, when you see like really lean people, it's either not realistic or it's genetic. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like to look, you know, because obviously even for myself, there's been times where I've worked with a couple different trainers and I'm like, okay, I want to look like this. And they're like, okay, well, to look like that, you have to eat this way. And I remember I tried it and I like literally just wanted to lay in bed and rot because it's like barely any food. It was like chicken. And when I tell you like the smallest little bit of rice, I'm like, I knew right away that this just wasn't sustainable. And like, obviously my body wasn't used to it, but I was like, you should never feel like you're starving. I mean, like, unless like you're obviously trying to compete or like work towards something. But it's hard because I think, you know, because there's so many things on social media that show so many different body types. It's like everyone wants to look like someone. And it's like genetics, like you said, it plays a huge role.
Yes.
So it's like you can work hard and still not look like some of these people, you know? So
yeah, and like that's like, for example, everyone's always like, oh, like I have, so my rib cage, this is a great example of genetics. My rib cage are slightly inverted here. So it doesn't matter like my body fat, like right here, I always have those lines. But that's because my rib cage is literally slightly like, like it's sticking out. Like I didn't do anything to achieve that. So like genetics plays a big role. And then again, I think it's very easy to like, I have no issues being like, yeah, I'm off season right now. I'm like sitting at, I'm like 190 right now. I'm 5'4". That's fucking heavy. Like I'm heavy right now, but I do that because I know for example, next year I want to compete. I took a year off because of like other, like I got like other things I need to get done first. And that's another thing is like, it's impossible to do anything else. Like if you're going to compete, that better be the only really big thing you're doing at that time.
Your main focus.
Your main focus. Like you can't like, I've been able to, like, some people can't even handle a relationship, honestly, in prep.
Yeah.
Like, because, like, you can't go out to eat for dinner. Like, there's just a lot of, because we're socially, we eat. That's what we do. We go out to eat.
Yep.
You go to a bar, you go to a club, you go to, like, dinner,
And
restaurant,
even drinking
whatever.
too, right?
Yes.
It's like, yeah.
No, like, you cannot.
Yeah,
So,
I dated a guy that was like that once, and it was like towards the end, like when he was like really cutting, I was like, this isn't fucking fun. This is terrible.
yes. And that's the thing. Like, and that's why, like, whenever and that's why and that's why I don't compete year round, because one, I'm miserable. The person I'm with is miserable. Like, it's just one of those things. I compete, I'm done. Okay, next year, because it's also not healthy staying that lean year round. And in my off season, like, I really believe in balance. Like, my off season, yeah, like if we're gonna go out or whatever, I'll go out. Like, I'm not gonna say no, because hardcore, like, bodybuilding, like, no, like, you're gonna burn out like that so fast.
Yeah.
And that's why I still love doing it, because I'm able to take a step back when I need to.
Yeah, that is really important.
You know? And then so I competed my first show, and then I got like a bunch of people reaching out to me and stuff like that. And I was like, whoa, like, I was just doing this. I honestly really was doing it for myself. Like, for me, it was almost like I wanted to prove it to myself that I wanted to do it.
Right.
Maybe it was a little petty. Maybe there was a small part of me like, I just want to, like, beat this guy or something. I don't know.
Right.
Probably. Like, I'm being honest.
Yeah,
but
we
I
all
think
got a little bit of ego in
yeah,
there.
yeah. Like, I think there was some ego in there for sure. But a big part of it was, again, that sense of control and being like, wow, I did that was really big for me.
Yeah, that really is incredible. Seriously.
Yeah, thank you. And it's just like, that's when I was like, okay, like, I'm gonna try to keep doing this. Like, that, I was like, I'm just gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
So from there,
sorry to interrupt. I have a quick question.
Yeah.
At this point, did you know, like, you kind of wanted to take this as a career, or kind of just was it still in like a hobby phase?
So this is the interesting thing, because, and that's why another reason why bodybuilding is so niche, because everyone, like, for example, some people do it as their career, like competing, like they'll literally make money from competing. And then some people just do it and have an actual job. Okay. Like, it's just like really anyone can get into it. Right. So for me, I always, like, my goal has always been, like, I just want to be the first trans guy to step on the Mr. Olympia stage. Like, that would be epic. Like, that is my goal when it comes to bodybuilding. But realistically, unfortunately, right now, making money competing is, like, you're not going to make a lot. Like, if you're relying on making money through competing, it's going to be very difficult for you. Yeah. Like, you got to do something else. So, like, coaching, if you want, like, I get coach people. I love doing that. I help some other trans guy get on stage. But if you want to, like, just make money, like, I even tell my guys that I coach, I'm like, listen, I'm being super brutally honest with you. Don't do it. Like, it's just because the prize money is peanuts until you get to, like, Mr. Olympia. Yeah, if you win the Mr. Olympia, you get a good amount of money. Yeah. But up to that point, you spend like $3,000 on prep. Right. You get like $3.5K. Mm-hmm. Is that $500 really worth it? Yeah. You know? So for me, it's always been like, I want to do it seriously, but not financially rely on competing. Even though I want to take it so far. Yeah. That's just how I've always been.
Okay. So around this time, you weren't coaching yet, right? People just started kind of reaching out to you?
Yeah. So actually people were reaching out to me, and I was saying no because I didn't feel comfortable to do it yet. Yeah. Because I was like, okay, well, I look like this right now because someone else helped me. Right. Let me get actually educated first. So I actually talked to Jason. I'm like, hey, listen, and he was like bugging me about it. He was like, listen, you should coach people. Like, you're very articulate, like you're detail oriented, like you really genuinely care. You should do this if you ever thought about it. I was like, okay, I'll think about it. So I thought about it for like a year. I was like, all right, I want to do this, but I want to do this the right way. Like, let me get my, like, I need like a certification or something, right? Like, I don't want to just, I'm also like, I don't want, if something, God forbid, were to happen, I want to say, hey, listen, I'm certified. I didn't do this like any shady way. Like, I have the go-to to do this. Right. So I got my certification through NCI, which is fantastic. Because what's nice about NCI, because like there's the NASM, there's a couple ones, but what's nice about the NCI is it's very bodybuilding specific, which is great because that's what I want to do. I want to coach people in bodybuilding, not like physical therapy and stuff. So I got that on top of college, which honestly, like, it wasn't too bad for me, just like time management. But in college, I was doing something completely different. And then what I do outside of bodybuilding is completely different. So I kind of live like two lives almost. Mm-hmm. So I have like my bodybuilding, my coaching in that world. And then I have my like, so I'm in like business and finance outside of that. So I kind of like do both. Yeah. And that's another thing I don't really talk about on my Instagram because I don't know. Yeah. I just try and keep my Instagram to bodybuilding and stuff that I know matters to get out there. Mm-hmm. So yeah, again, like I never really wanted to financially rely on it. I just want to take it far because that's just how I am.
Right.
Like,
And also I think too, because you've seen what it's done for you. And I feel like, like your coach was saying, if you really care about it and you want to help others, I feel like
Yes.
that's the perfect opportunity
Right.
to do that.
And it's for me, like and like for me, I do my coaching stuff on my off time because for me,
Okay.
it's not like a chore.
Okay.
Like
got it.
I like the time I find to make sure I answer everyone, like communicate with them daily, like it's fun. I'll repeat that. I'll repeat that. Yeah. But like for me, like I really enjoy doing it. So like I find the time throughout the day to answer them if they have questions. Like they check in with me once a week. Some of them twice a week, some of them 3 times a week if they're in prep. Like I'm on their
How
grill.
many people are you coaching right now?
Right now, 74.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
And you have a whole nother job.
Correct.
That is wild.
Yes.
Do you have free time?
Lexi, do I have free time?
She's laughing.
Right. Well, so it really depends because right now, I figured it out. I am.
Well, as long as you figure it out,
Well,
right?
I have come to the point. I've created a Google Sheets document and I have time blocked my time.
Right.
Because I am that type A that I feel the need to like be like, okay, let me do like that because I'm also still in college. Like I'm not even graduated yet.
Okay.
So I have 1 year left. I'm just like so ready. Like everyone's literally like, why are you still in college? I'm like, I don't know. I need to finish.
Yeah.
Because I literally need my degree for my actual job.
Right.
So not my actual job, my other job, because they're both real jobs.
Yeah.
But yeah, so right now it's a little bit more difficult, and that's why I had to put competing off this year because I can't handle a prep on top of
It's a lot.
college and 2 jobs.
Right.
It's a lot. So I kind of like waiting to finish, and that's another thing. So for my other job, I have to take licensing exams for that too, just like with my coaching.
Yeah.
I need licensing exams for the other job I'm like gradually getting myself into. So I need you might not know what these are, but I need my SIE, my Series 7, my Series 6, my LAH.
I'm going to nod my head like I know it.
So pretty much, so they're like broker dealer licenses,
Okay.
financial advice. So I work, not yet. So I can't say legally, I can't say I work for them yet until I get my licensing. But right now I'm interning at Equitable, which is a financial advising firm.
Awesome.
But right now I'm like going through the ropes and like learning everything, and I'm getting my licensing done, which is incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
So I can't handle my Series 6 and college and coaching and prep.
Right.
Then she would
Understandable.
fucking hate me.
Yeah.
So it's like she would hate me. So it's one of those things that I need to just, again, be realistic. Sometimes I pull, sometimes I push. So I know for a fact that like I'm looking to be done with these licensing next year, period, for sure, before I graduate so I can start doing it.
Yeah.
So then, yeah, I'll compete. And I want to, like, next time I compete, I want to go big. Like, I want to do a really big show. If I have to fly, I'll fly. But
So have all the ones that you've done, they've all been in
Local.
New York?
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
So I want to do something like, for example, they have, because right now, so my first big step would be getting my pro card. So I still need to do that, which that in itself is so difficult. Like that's why, like, if you ever see someone on Instagram and they have IFBB Pro in their title, I promise you that was so difficult to get to put on their Instagram. It's not even funny. Like getting your pro card, it's like 1 out of like 400 people. It's very competitive at that point. So getting my pro card alone, being like the first trans pro bodybuilder, awesome. Would love that. And then from there.
So would you be the first one if you got?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yes, I would be the first transgender IFBB pro.
Wow.
Because I mean, there's other people racing me for it, but whoever gets there first is the first. You know. I'm trying to think who else does it through the NPC, because there are trans guys that compete through like transgender federations.
Okay.
But I wanted to do like the big name because Mr. Olympia is huge.
Yep.
So I was like, no, I want to do that. So yeah, I mean, I would be the first trans guy to get my pro card, and then. What's nice about bodybuilding is it long term. I could do this into my 30s.
Yeah.
You know, realistically, I would like to get my pro card in I want to get my pro card in my 20s for sure. So again, like it's just one of those things that I have like 2 separate lives going on.
Yeah.
But I love bodybuilding so much. Like I would never stop.
Yeah.
Like I can't.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. So then Gymshark, how did that happen? That is so incredible.
So Gymshark was one of those things that they reached out to me, after my first show. They reached out to me and they're like, hey, listen, like we love your story. We would love to work with you, all of that. And I was just surprised. I was like, whoa, okay. Like, I'd be like, listen, like, I'm really not that big on Instagram. Like, are you sure about that? And they were just like, yeah, no, like, we love your story, all of that. And I was like, okay, great. Like, let's do it. And it was great. I mean, it's how I met her technically. So
Really?
yes. So it's how I met Lexi technically, because Lexi and I have known each other since we were very, very young. But she moved out to Denver, Colorado, and Gymshark's headquarters are in Denver, Colorado. So that's a story in its own. But we met up like years later in Denver. So that's how we started talking.
And that's when you were going out there for Gymshark.
Yes, because literally my manager at the time, Andy, was like, hey, like, why don't you come out to Denver? Like, we want to show you the headquarters. I'm like, great. And then she reached out. She's like, oh, you're coming to Denver? Like, let's meet up. I was like, okay. So but you're laughing because I'm not really telling the full thing.
No, I'm laughing because I said, yeah, I can drive you back to the airport. I live like 15 minutes from the airport, but I lived like an hour away. I just wanted to see him.
Aw, sweet.
But yeah, so Gymshark was fantastic. It led me to a couple great opportunities. And yeah, I mean, it was just great. Again, it's just so great to see more and more brands to like be open and like get these people that kind of, whatever, we like defy traditional stuff, whatever that means. And it's just great that, because it's important, because like I said, everyone's so like, the tribalism is real. Like, if you see a large group of people moving one way, other people are gonna be persuaded to move the same way. So it is important that we promote like being like just respectful. Like, I'm a big on respect. Like, just respect people. Like, you don't have to agree, like, whatever.
Right.
So I think just the more people that are vocal about that is important, because I've also noticed people that are hateful are very vocal. Right. So we need to like be just as loud as that if you want to make an actual difference. Because if you just let them like run you over and be mean and like say these incredibly like rude things, like, no, like, you don't have to be rude about it back. But if you stand together like as a larger group of people, when you have those people that are trying to literally like pass laws to like not let you do things and things of that nature, like, it does make a difference if a large group of people say, hey, no, we're not doing that.
Absolutely. It
does make an absolutely big difference. So, and that applies to so many different things. Yeah. So I immediately said yes. I was like, yeah, I'll do it. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll do it. Right. Like, I'll be honest. I don't know what to expect. And then I also had my protein reach out to me. That's fantastic. So yeah, I mean, again, like, I really did this out of passion because I really like loved it. And I just, again, that initial feeling for me was taking control over my body, but it just developed into something so much more. Really.
Yeah. That's incredible.
Thank you.
And then did you want to talk about your relationship a little bit?
Yes.
So you guys knew each other how long did you guys know each other? Oh boy.
Okay. So pretty much 14.
Okay.
So I was barely transitioned. Like, we've known each other a very, very long time, but pretty much.
And you lived in New York originally? Okay. Got it.
So, so this is what happened. So I dated her friend when we were 14.
Yeah, I had a crush on his girlfriend.
So she had a crush on her at the time, and I was dating her at the time. Okay. So that's how we knew each other initially.
And you were like midway through transition at this point?
Yes. So I was transitioned socially, but I wasn't on testosterone or anything. Like, I was pre-transition, but socially I was out.
Okay.
So I was dating her good friend, and that's how we knew each other. And it was, we were young. Like, it was never anything like crazy serious. But we dated for like a year and a half. I've never been in a short relationship. Like, that was a year and a half, that relationship. And then she had to move a lot for like personal reasons. And she ended up in Denver, but we always kept in touch over like social media and stuff. And at the time, she identified as a lesbian. So she would flirt with me. And me being respectful of her title, like I just wouldn't really think about it. Yeah. Because like I feel like you would explain this better. But so she like pretty much she was always into women, but she just felt attracted to me for some reason. Okay. And she never looked at me as a female. She was like, no, like, I always looked at you as a man, but for some reason, like, I was also just attracted to you, specifically like your energy. So I was like, okay. But at the time, I didn't get the cue at all, like
Right.
any time, because again, if you say you're lesbian, you're lesbian. I'm not gonna be that guy to be like, oh, I can change you, like just like try it out, like
Right.
like that garbage. So I was like, okay, I just assumed she was being friendly with me.
Yeah.
So that went on for a bit. Like we were just friendly. We would we would just catch up, talk, whatever. And then at one point, she really realized, like, and then I was because she was in Denver, so I was in other relationships too. So she would randomly just like, so I would be in relationships and she would randomly message me and flirt with me and see if I'd flirt back, because she knew that if I was in a relationship, I wouldn't flirt back. So when I didn't flirt back, she's like, got it, I'll come back in a couple months, kind of thing.
I love that. It's funny.
So she'd be like, okay, he's not reciprocating because he's a good guy, so I'll come back. And then again, but I never even got the cue, honestly.
Yeah.
Like I only realized when we started dating, because she told me all of this. I was like, oh really? That's what you were doing?
Right.
I just thought you were friendly. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm naive.
Yeah.
And then at one point I was single finally, and at this point I'm with Gymshark, and she again reached out to me as usual, and she was flirting with me, and I wasn't getting the cue, and I guess at this point she was getting annoyed.
Right, like, can you get it already?
Yeah, kind of like, can you get it already?
Right.
But again, she identifies as a lesbian, so I have a pretty solid excuse on like why I didn't understand what she was trying to do. And so she had to make it, I don't know if this is PG-13. So she had to make it very...
It's okay. You can go R-rated.
Do I have your permission?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. So...
She's like, what part? Just kidding.
Oh, no, I don't care.
Okay. So she sent me a nude, and then she sent me a message with it saying, I want to make sure I say it like on point. They can chop it, babe. So do you want to say it now so I can say it?
I said I'm gay as fuck, but I'd let you choke the fuck out of me.
Okay, you got to repeat.
So she said, I'm gay as fuck, but I'd let you choke the fuck out of me. And
Love
I was
it.
like,
I got it now, I think.
And I was vivid. I remember this vividly for sure. And I was like on the Stairmaster, and I like, it was dumb early in the morning. It was like 5 in the morning. I'm like barely opening my eyes on the Stairmaster. You're trying to get through it.
I'm
like,
sure the nude opened your eyes.
Yeah. And I remember I was like trying to like just get through this cardio, because I was in prep too at the time.
Yeah.
I was doing a prep time. And I just opened it. I'm like, oh, Lexi, like me being a fucking dumbass. I was like, oh, Lexi texted me. Cool, okay. She messaged me like really late at night. It's not weird at all. So I open it, and then I see that. And I'm like, I remember I was like, I stopped my Stairmaster. I like stopped my Stairmaster. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
I'm a dumbass.
Right,
like,
I've been missing all the cues.
Yeah. And I was like, oh. Like, it's like I don't know, like this, like,
it clicked.
like it was like a
yeah.
Like in my head, I was like, oh. And then I don't even remember what I said. I think I was a little awkward about it because I just was so taken by surprise. Yeah. And I was like, you free tonight? Like, you want to FaceTime?
Yeah.
And I was like, I mean, obviously I flirted a bit. I was like, oh wow, like whatever. And I was like, okay, like, you know, let's FaceTime tonight, blah blah blah. And then so we were talking for a bit now, with me being very aware of what she was trying to do.
Right.
And so I told her. So at this point in time, I already been to Denver for Gymshark specifically, and she was trying to like get me to like meet her up because she'll drive me to the airport, whatever. Yeah. Unfortunately, the first time, so I went to Denver twice. First time was for Gymshark only. Second time was for Gymshark and her. So it was like nice like combined kind of trip for me.
Yeah.
And so first time I wasn't able to see her, which sucked. But then the second time, because at this point I already went, we were on FaceTime. She was like, we were just joking around, and she was like, you wouldn't fly out to come see me? I'm like, yeah. And I fucking booked like a Delta flight like right there. I like sent her a screenshot. I'm like, fuck you. I'm like, I'm coming. And then and I texted Annie, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna be in Denver again. He's like, it's been like 3 weeks. And I'm like, I'm coming again. So if you want to like meet up, let me know. Yeah. So then we met up finally, and then I mean, we pretty much like, it was like immediate. Like we like, it was very like instant.
You guys hit it off.
Yeah, we hit it off. And then I had like a nice little like, I was gonna ask her out, but like, so I make bomb French toast. So I was gonna like go out and like get recipes, like, I mean, all the ingredients for the recipe, come home because I woke up way before she did because I was in prep, so I'd wake up like at the crack of dawn. She would wake up at normal human hours, so I was like, okay, on my way back from fasted cardio, I will grab the ingredients for French toast. I will make her French toast and ask her to be my girlfriend. That was my plan. The night before, she's on top of me and she like looks at me and I'm like, she like I can tell she's gonna say something, and she's just like, so are you gonna be my boyfriend or what? And I'm like, you're not gonna even give me the chance to ask.
Oh yeah, there goes your fucking plan. Just down the drain.
Just down the drain.
So did you still make the French toast?
I did still make the French toast.
There you fucking
go. Yeah. So that's our story. It's
that is awesome. That is so sweet. So how long have you guys been together now?
We've been also living together the whole time. Too.
Wow.
Yeah, we live together.
Moved across the country.
So you moved to be with him?
Oh,
yes.
Wow.
Within a month. People thought we were fucking nuts. We probably were nuts, but we're.
Well, hey, I mean,
my whole life is wing it.
Yeah.
Love that.
I gotta do what I gotta do.
Yeah, and then but like my mom loves her. Like it's like I wear a promise ring. Like it's serious. So like we live together. We've been literally like, and like the thing is like I always say you don't know someone until you live with them.
Yep, that's true.
Like you really don't.
So how long has that been?
Like a year.
Okay,
and a half.
got it. Awesome.
Yeah. But again, we knew each other for so long.
Right, so it feels like.
So it feels like we've known each other for like we did know each other for a very long time.
And that's the best too. It's like when you actually know someone, it's like I feel like you kind of low key know that they have good intentions. It's like this isn't just like a new, person that you don't know what to expect. It's like okay, we've kind of crossed paths here and there like over the years, so you kind of have like a good idea of who a person is.
Right, and you can read them a little better. Like like okay, he's acting a little weird or she's acting a little weird or like I feel like you pick up on things faster too.
For sure. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so I do have a question.
Yes.
So you said that you got the top surgery, right?
Mm-hmm.
So would it be called bottom surgery? Or do they call it like for okay.
Yeah. So like I mean it has like actual names.
Okay.
Like,
tell me what the names are just so I'm like educated.
I don't know.
Okay, so you don't know the names. Okay, so we're going with
a phalloplasty.
Okay, so yeah, long words. Okay, so do you plan on getting?
So it's just like so my thing about it is female transgender female, their surgery is so damn advanced, like you would never know. Like at this point a trans female can full on it's incredible what they can do.
I know. I've watched some videos like out of and it's crazy what they can do.
But the problem for me is with the trans guys, it's just not advanced enough where if I'm gonna it's like this is a terrible comparison, but it's like a tattoo. If I'm gonna have this for the rest of my life, I better make it worth it.
Right.
So for me, it's just not advanced enough where I'm like, yes, like this is what I dreamt of. Like it's just like, for example, you have two options. You have one where you have to squeeze the balls to even get it erect. Like I don't want to fucking do that. Like that's weird.
Okay.
And then the other one is it doesn't even it's more for just peeing. Like you can't really use it for like sexual intercourse. So I'm like, wait, why would I do that? That just makes it worse.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah. So if I'm being fully transparent, those are the two options. So one, it's more for like peeing, and then one is for sexual intercourse, but you can barely feel it as the guy.
Wow.
And you have to like literally pump it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it's one of those things.
And then it's not like that with the trans women?
With trans females, it's like it literally is like you couldn't even tell.
Wow.
So it's quite a
So it is a big difference.
It's a discrepancy for sure. So for me, we have other things we do, but that honestly, so.
Right, it's like how worth it. Right.
Yeah. It's just like how worth it is, and then honestly, one thing that for me made me get very physically comfortable with Lexi very quickly, honestly, is she was with women.
Yeah.
So there was parts of me, okay, well, I'm not. I was still awkward at first, but it was way less awkward because she was and honestly, I've always dated girls that were either bisexual or pansexual because it just for us makes it a lot easier. I was actually with a straight girl, and that was never and then another thing is they always knew ahead of time.
Okay.
It was never to the point where we're in the bedroom and I'm just how do I no, I never put myself in that position. It was always before we even romantically started flirting, I would tell them. Yeah. Just to be out of respect, hey, listen, just got to tell you this because it's clearly important. I am trans. That's not your thing. That's cool. Right. That's cool. But that's why I want to say it now before I waste either of our times. Yeah. So that was never an issue. But just for me, with her having been with girls in the past, it did make it easier, honestly. Okay. But that being said, we definitely don't have issues in that department. So I just figure.
Yeah, and I was going to say too, like based on even earlier how you were so confident and everything else, it's like if you're like, if you know in your mind like, like this isn't advanced enough for me, it's like,
Correct.
right. It's, I feel like you at this point know that mentally, like you can figure it out on your own, like if something's the right decision or not for yourself.
Yeah, and exactly. And like at this point, Lexi and I live like alone. Like I've always wanted to be independent from a very young age. Like all the decisions, like I've always liked to make for myself on my own. So like if I make a decision, I'm gonna stick with it. And like it's the thing is like if it gets better, absolutely.
Yeah.
But at this point, like I'm honestly just like not impressed. Like it's not something that like makes me want to do it. I'm not excited. Like when I got my top surgery, like when I was getting ready to get my top surgery, oh my God, I was probably so annoying. I couldn't shut the fuck up about it. But like I don't feel that way about bottom surgery. So like why would I do it? You know?
Yeah, and I was gonna say too, it's really interesting because I didn't even know, like when you, I feel like a lot of people don't know this either. Like when you hear someone's transgender, it's like you don't know. I feel like nobody knows like really what to think. Like, did they have surgeries? Did they not? And then even like,
and asking is probably so uncomfortable.
Right, and even like the separation though of like, oh well, do they have top and bottom or just one or the, you know what I mean? It's like I feel like when you hear that word, it's like you don't really know the details of it.
Right.
And I, once again too, like I feel like the whole point of this is like, it doesn't really matter. You know, it's
Correct.
more about the person than anything else. But at the same time, it is like, even for me, so educational because like I wouldn't even know these things. You know what I mean? So it's really, really interesting.
Yeah. And there's some trans people that have they're both done.
Right.
There actually are some transgender men that get their uteruses removed, believe it or not, because what happens is, especially if you start your hormonal transition after puberty, there can be buildup of the lining in the uterus. So that actually causes health issues. So there's a lot of trans guys that actually have to get their uteruses removed, like not by choice, like you have to. It. Otherwise, like there's serious like issues that can happen. There's some like, and then again, like it really goes, it's just like anyone else. It really goes person by person. And in my, and like there will definitely be transgender people that disagree with me when I say this. But I think, again, go back to the fact that if you want to feel like you're in a safe space, you also have to let them feel like it's safe to like try and help. Like how can you expect someone that isn't transgender to know how to make you feel comfortable if you're not willing to talk about it? Like, hey, listen, I'm comfortable with that. Hey, listen, that kind of makes me uncomfortable. Like you have to be able to be like, hey, this is like just talk about it.
Yeah, it's always about communication with like with everything. But
there are some transgender people that I will admit, like they just don't want to talk about it and they get offended. I'm like, why are you getting offended? Like they have to ask you these things. Like they're not mind readers. Unfortunately, we haven't gotten that far with it where it's just common knowledge. It's not common knowledge.
It's new to people, or they don't want to ask because they might be uncomfortable, and it's like you're not going to know unless you ask. You know what I mean?
And it's understandable because like who in their right mind would go asking like a cis person about their private parts? Like it's just not a natural a natural question, period. So it's one of those things that, especially if you're gonna get in a relationship, they're gonna have to ask. Like you want to make sure that they're comfortable with it, like you know. And especially like at least for me, speaking for myself, it's very important for me to know that the person that I'm with is comfortable with me, like in like physically, because like you know, you're in a relationship, like you have to be like, there should be some type of like chemistry there, right? Like otherwise I don't think it's gonna work personally. Like long term, if there's no physical chemistry, like I don't know.
Yeah, very important.
Like I think it's important. So like it's really important for me to know like, hey, listen, you're comfortable with me, we're good. Like I'm obviously comfortable with you, but on my end, like that's crucial. So like I always tell them right away. Yeah. You know, and there are some trans guys that, or trans women, whatever, that they will refrain from telling them. And I'm like, why would you do that? Like tell them, like don't, because like in my opinion, in a sense, you are leading them on in a certain way because you're not telling them some very critical facts about yourself that maybe they just personally aren't into. They like, just because someone isn't into it doesn't make them against trans people, but maybe that's just not what they want for themselves. Right. Like just like we have types, like that's just not what they want for themselves. They imagine themselves with something very specific. That's fine. Right. So that's why like don't do, like you're wasting their time and your own time.
Yeah, and I really do, just saying it again, I think it's incredible that you are so open. And so like I think the point that you made too of like being open to others and others' questions and like even what they might want to ask without getting offended and like reciprocating it on both sides is so important. And it's important for like growth within like our society to be more open and to learn. And like once again, like that's why I wanted to have you on, because it's like I want people to like to know and to, you know, like feel comfortable like sitting here and listening. And also like that's why I was telling you too. It's like when I wanted you to come on, it's like I want you to tell your story for what it is. Like not like question by question and stuff, because I don't think it's necessary. You know what I mean? And I think that it's so incredible that you're able to just be so open-minded. And I think you have such an incredible, inspiring story for so many different reasons, obviously. But yeah, I just think it's awesome overall.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Was there anything else you want to say?
Ooh, was there anything else you want to talk about? I mean,
up to you. Totally up to you. I just like always like to ask because I don't want to miss anything.
No, I appreciate that. I think I'm very satisfied with that.
Awesome.
If you guys are.
Good. No, I think it was great. So seriously, thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome.
I love your story. You're so sweet and amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Everything's cool. So as far as like coaching goes and all of that stuff, can I just like link it in the description? Like your all of that information? Okay,
yeah, please,
awesome.
if you could do that, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Thank
Perfect. Well, thank you again. It was so great having you on.
Thank you for having me. I hope I didn't ramble too much.
No, you didn't. It was perfect. You did great. Seriously.
Awesome.
Thank you.